Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. The Supreme Court today has lifted restrictions placed on immigration agents by a federal judge in Los Angeles. Certain immigration stops can resume. President Trump takes the foreign aid dispute to the Supreme Court, what his administration wants the nation's highest court to do. A New York appeals court upholds the E. Jean Carroll $83 billion deficit verdict. Kyiv in flames as Russia struck a Ukrainian government building deep in the capital city. At least 4 were killed, including an infant. Allies condemned the attack and prepared to increase sanctions on Moscow. Exports from China to the U.S. plunged to a 6-month low. An expert joins us to discuss how this is impacting more than just the U.S. and China.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. A majority of the Supreme Court granted President Trump's emergency request to overturn a federal ruling that restricted the administration's immigration stops in Los Angeles. The majority decision puts on hold the July 11th ruling by a Los Angeles-based district judge who said immigration agents could not stop people purely because of their race, ethnicity, or that they speak Spanish. Justice Brett Kavanaugh said in a concurring opinion that immigration law permits immigration officers to interrogate individuals believed to be illegal immigrants. Justice Sonia Sotomayor said in a dissenting opinion that the government shouldn't be permitted to seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job. In another Supreme Court emergency decision today, Chief Justice John Roberts granted the administration's request to remove a member of the Federal Trade Commission. The Trump administration asked the Supreme Court today to intervene in his bid to withhold foreign aid. This could impact $4 billion previously authorized by Congress. The Justice Department asked the High Court to halt a lower court's order requiring the administration to spend the fund. A lower court judge ruled last week that the administration cannot simply choose to withhold the money. Trump sought to block the funding through an unusual step called a pocket rescission that bypasses Congress. The money at issue was intended by Congress for foreign aid, United Nations peacekeeping operations, and democracy promotion efforts overseas. The DOJ said in its filing that the administration views the funding as, quote, contrary to U.S. foreign policy. And an update on last week's arrest of hundreds of illegal immigrants at a Hyundai plant. President Trump says he will look into what happened at the motor manufacturing facility in Georgia. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the incident, which Trump says has not harmed his relationship with South Korea.
President Trump painted the ICE raid on the Hyundai car battery facility in Georgia as a complex one.
When they're building batteries, if you don't have people in this country right now that know about batteries, maybe we should help them along and let some people come in and train our people to do, complex things.
The president says the U.S. has lost footing in a number of industries that his administration is now trying to revive.
And we're going to have to train people. And the way you train people is bring people in that know what they're doing and let them stay for a little while and help.
Trump says the investments of foreign countries are welcome, and the U.S. encourages them to legally bring in their experts to build world-class products. The president vowed to expedite the visa process for such workers, asking that they hire and train American workers in return.
At the same time, ICE was doing right because they were here illegally.
GSP in position.
On True Social, Trump called on all foreign companies investing in the United States to respect America's immigration laws. About 475 workers were arrested in the raid, the largest single-site enforcement action in the Department of Homeland Security's history. More than 300 of them were South Korean nationals.
As a result of swift and united efforts by government ministries, business groups, and companies, talks for the release of the detained workers have been concluded.
South Korea says it will seek ways to improve the visa system of Korean workers traveling to the U.S. to prevent a similar incident. Seoul will send a charter plane to bring the workers back once the remaining administrative steps are concluded. The majority of the detainees were sent to an immigration detention center in Folkston, Georgia, near the Florida border. The Hyundai plant, still under construction, is a joint venture with LG Energy Solution to produce batteries for electric vehicles. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Chief Justice John Roberts is letting President Donald Trump remove a member of the Federal Trade Commission for now. It's a temporary win for the White House. The short-term order, known as an administrative stay, gives the justices more time to review Trump's emergency request to fire Rebecca Slaughter. By itself, today's order doesn't signal whether the president will ultimately win his appeal in Slaughter's case. Roberts ordered Slaughter's legal team to respond to Trump's emergency appeal by next Monday. Trump fired Slaughter in March. In July, a federal appeals court ordered her to be reinstated while the litigation over her firing plays out. Days later, the administration filed an emergency appeal with the Supreme Court. The order will let Trump keep Slaughter out of work until the High Court resolves the case. A federal appeals court today rejected President Trump's arguments to overturn an $83.3 million jury verdict. The three-judge panel ordered him to pay for defaming writer E. Jean Carroll. Trump's attorneys had argued the judgment was both excessive and invalid, relying on a Supreme Court decision that expanded presidential immunity. They challenged actions by the trial court judge, such as a portion of Trump's testimony thrown out and the jury instructions on punitive damages. The panel concluded the lower court's challenged decisions were correct and that the jury's damages awards were fair and responsible and reasonable. Ms. Carroll had sued President Trump in 2019 over two statements he made denying allegations of sexual assault. Trump spoke to reporters after returning from the U.S. Open yesterday and addressed several global flashpoints. Here's more on what the president said.
President Trump said on Sunday that individual European leaders would visit the United States at the start of this week to discuss how to resolve the Russian-Ukraine war.
I mean, we have some very interesting discussions. You know, certain European leaders are coming over to our country on Monday or Tuesday, and individually. And I think we're going to get that settled. I think we're going to get it settled. We have to.
Trump also said he expects to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin in the coming days.
When do you plan to speak to President Putin next? And what
Very
might
soon. Over the next couple of days. Look, we're going to get it done. The Russia-Ukraine situation, we're going to get it done. I have confidence we're going to get it done.
Trump also said he is prepared to increase sanctions against Russia. His comments come after an overnight assault by Russia set the main government headquarters in Kyiv on fire. President Volodymyr Zelensky said the drone and missile barrage killed 4 people and caused damage across the north, south, and east of the country.
It's such a horrible waste of humanity. So, no, I am not thrilled with what's happening there, I will tell you.
Reporters also asked Trump about the ongoing conflict in Gaza. He suggested progress is being made in talks with Hamas over hostages.
So, we had some very good discussions. Good things could happen. I think we're going to have a deal on Gaza very soon. It's a hell of a problem.
Turning to Asia, Trump said he was surprised by Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's resignation on Sunday.
I found him to be a very nice man, actually. We dealt very well together.
Ishiba recently ironed out a trade deal with the U.S. to lower tariffs. Since coming to power less than a year ago, his ruling coalition has lost its majorities in both houses of parliament. His Liberal Democratic Party has faced voter anger over rising living costs. Until Sunday, he had refused calls to step down. Now that the trade deal with the U.S. is finalized, he says he would like to pass the baton to the next generation.
Israel said today it has accepted a Gaza ceasefire proposal from President Trump.
President Trump said it clearly yesterday. Israel said yes to his proposal. We are ready to accept a full deal that would end the war based on the cabinet decision. 2 things must happen. 1, the return of our hostages. Second thing, Hamas must lay down its arms.
The U.S. proposal calls for the immediate release of all hostages and to the start of negotiations for a full end to the war. Trump wrote yesterday evening that the Israelis accepted his terms. The president urged the Hamas terror group to accept as well. Trump said it was his last warning. Hamas confirmed yesterday it has received some ideas on ending the war from the U.S. administration through mediators. A government building in flames after Russia hit Ukraine in the biggest strike of the war. At least 4 were killed, including an infant. President Trump condemned the attack as European Union officials prepare a new round of sanctions against Moscow and its close allies. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more on this for us.
Russia launched its largest air attack of the war on Ukraine overnight on Sunday. Ukrainian officials said the main government building in central Kiev was set on fire, and 4 people, including an infant, were killed. President Volodymyr Zelensky said the drone and missile barrage caused damage across the north, south and east of the country.
Clearly, Russia is trying to inflict pain on Ukraine with even more brazen attacks. This is a clear sign that Putin is testing the world, whether they will accept or tolerate this. That is why it is important that the statements of leaders, states, and institutions be backed by strong actions.
Russia launched 805 drones and 13 missiles against Ukraine. The Ukrainian Air Force said they downed 751 drones and 4 missiles. Thick smoke could be seen rising into the clear blue sky from the burning top floor of the main government building just after sunrise. Elsewhere in Kiev, residential apartments were hit and damaged. Dozens of residents, wrapped in blankets, gathered on the streets to survey the damage to their homes. Russian President Vladimir Putin has resisted calls for a ceasefire, emboldened by strengthening relations with China. President Trump said on Sunday he is ready to move to a second phase of sanctioning Russia.
They're losing 7,000 between Ukraine and Russia, 7,000 soldiers every single week. It's such a horrible waste of humanity. So, no, I am not thrilled with what's happening there, I will tell you.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on Sunday that additional economic pressure could prompt Putin to enter peace talks. The Kremlin said on Monday that no sanctions would ever force Russia to change course in the Ukraine war. The European Union is currently drafting a 19th package of Russian sanctions. EU diplomats said it is likely to include more listings of Chinese companies, Russian banks and ships, as well as a transaction ban on Russian oil. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
President Trump says that European leaders will return to the United States to discuss the Russia-Ukraine war. Joining us now to discuss this is retired U.S. Navy Captain Armin Kurdian. He's also a foreign policy and national security analyst, as well as a California State Senate candidate. So thank you for joining us today, Armin. So now Trump said that the leaders will be coming individually. So what do you think could be achieved in this round of meetings?
Good afternoon, Don. The European Union and the United States need to be coordinated on a package of Russian sanctions for quite simply the singular reason that coordinating our efforts between our currencies, between our economies, your reporter had it right there at the very, very end. Strangulating or sanctioning anything that has to do with Russian energy production, whether it's the firms, the exportation, the movement of dollars, the use of the banking system, all that stuff is what is financing the war right now. Russia is on a war footing. Fully a third of their economy is going into war production. They're building 2,000 to 3,000 of these Shahed-style suicide drones per month. Now, keep in mind that these drones are, frankly, more of a weapon of terror, much like the V-1 buzz bomb was during World War II when Germany was using them against London and other targets in England. However, at the same time, it is causing untold havoc and destruction within Ukraine. It's not crushing the Ukrainian will to fight. However, at the same time, it is causing a lot of hate and discontent within that country. The real pressure is coming from the front lines, and the United States and the EU, and I've been saying this for months now, they need to get really, really serious about pressuring Russia to end this war.
So you listed the things that's financing the war, right? And we heard earlier from that report that there's the 19th package of sanctions being drafted by the EU. And, we can talk about how effective those sanctions have been, but Trump says he's not happy about the current state of negotiations. What do you think could motivate Putin to really come to the table and, sincerely talk about peace?
Probably the goal of sanctions or any type of action by the West needs to basically an internal political pressure against Putin to end this war. Something which dissatisfies his inner circle, something which dissatisfies Russian oligarchs, something which dissatisfies, shall we say, his biggest supporters within the country, his power base within the country, and that's what's going to have to do it. Obviously, there needs to be some simultaneous work to continue to reinforce and strengthen Ukrainian army and air force and the military to stop the inexorable Russian advance, which has been very, very slow. It hasn't been necessarily very successful, but they are moving forward. If Putin sees that his power base is in jeopardy or that he's perhaps at risk of being deposed, I think that more than anything might compel him to bring the war to an end. So if that has to do with money, basically the folks who are running these energy companies or anything of that sort, that might be the best, the most direct path to coming up with a ceasefire. But at the same time, it can't be the only axis of Western efforts.
So what do you think about how sustainable this war is? Because we heard earlier from President Trump in the report saying that between Ukraine and Russia, thousands of soldiers are lost every single week. So talk to us about that, the sustainability long-term in the physical sense and economically for both nations.
Sadly, the physical ability of this war to continue for both Ukraine and its allies and Russia and its allies to sustain this war is virtually unlimited, because it's not just Russia and Ukraine. It's the United States and Western European allies that are funneling equipment and other material into Ukraine, and it's China, it's Iran providing material and financial support, it's North Korea providing human support, it's India providing financial support through purchase of Russian oil. So long as the rest of the world is supporting these two nations in combat, and right now it seems to be in relative balance, the war can continue indefinitely almost. Remember, Russia and their side are limited in their economic might. They cannot match the West. However, they are definitely exceeding the West in terms of their will. They are willing to do everything that it takes to win this war. The United States and the European Union so far have not. And I'm really frustrated by Donald Trump, despite all the great work he's done around the world, in not bringing more pressure and more sanctions to Putin, a la what we actually spoke about, until he actually does that and sanctions every last square inch of earth that he possibly can against Putin and Russia's war effort. They're not going to feel that kind of pressure, because their economic engine is right now running at full steam. If you strangulate their money, Russia runs out of money and they're unable to basically buy any more drones or pay for any more North Korean troops, at which point those two nations may say, well, it's still in our financial interest to finance this war because it's still draining the West. So even if they do that, the war could still continue. But at the very least, it might stop Russia's advance, and they may have to even start withdrawing.
Okay, so you mentioned that you're sort of disappointed, but we heard President Trump as he was speaking to reporters. I mean, it sounded to me that he's actually rather confident that this war will come to an end in whatever manner. What do you think he has in mind? What is he confident about?
Well, he was confident a year ago that he's going to be able to bring this war to an end. And just to be very clear, I'm very happy with his efforts to make a good faith gesture, a good faith effort, full press to bring the war to an end. You didn't really see that under the Biden administration. He truly shows himself as a man of peace. But sometimes to be a man of peace, you also have to be a man of war. In terms of what sanctions he's looking at, like I said, it's probably all focused on Russian energy production. Perhaps, we can go insofar as sanctioning other countries which are providing, say, dual-use equipment, which could be used to enhance, produce, sustain, repair facilities that basically pull Russian oil and natural gas out of the ground. Are we able to go so far as to start seizing tankers which are coming out of Russia, through an international coalition, and saying, you come out of Russia fully laden with oil, that ship will be seized on the high seas and taken to a neutral port and impounded until the war is done, at which point does the Russian Navy become involved? If they do, the Russian Navy is still a shadow of its former self. The Ukrainians have done a pretty big number on the Black Sea Fleet, and I don't think the Russian Navy is going to be able to protect their fleet anymore. And that point, say, okay, is China now going to put its Navy out to sea and protecting some of these tankers? There's too many tankers to protect, so they won't be able to get them all. But honestly, that is a kind of a one-upsmanship. Sometimes you have to go several rungs up the escalation ladder to get somebody's attention. Perhaps that might be one.
Okay, we can probably talk about this for another hour, but I'll just ask you one more thing. So I think it's important to understand how confident Putin actually is in his ability to win this war, because I think the more confident that Putin is, there will be fewer things that can convince him to actually stop the fighting. So maybe you can speak to that. How sure of himself is he in winning this?
I honestly cannot imagine. I mean, Putin's a rational actor. He may be a terrible person, but he is a rational actor. I can't imagine that he actually believes he's going to be able to take all of Ukraine, because that is a very serious national security threat or global security threat to Europe and the United States. We cannot let it happen. Perhaps he is waiting to see if something happens. He perhaps is waiting for an unknown, some other type of global geopolitical event which is going to basically break the law, or perhaps take that area around Donetsk, which is the most highly fortified area, which has been stopping his advance into the heart of Ukraine. He might be hoping to say, okay, if I can get a breakthrough there, the rest of the country is open, and perhaps I'll be able to go and take Kyiv quickly enough before the West is actually able to stop. In all the scenarios I can think in my head, that might be the only thing I can think of that might be rational in the sense of Putin and his military and political leaders in terms of actually winning this war. Until that happens, there is no way they'll be able to occupy Ukraine.
Okay, well, Armin, great discussion. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Don.
President Trump promising to protect religious liberty and bring back religion in America. Hear his speech to the White House Religious Liberty Commission after the break.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality. A timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure natural power of Puretang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Puretang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
President Trump celebrated religious liberty today in a speech to the White House Religious Liberty Commission. He is promising to protect religion in America and bring it back stronger than ever before.
America was founded on faith, as we know, and I've been saying it for a long time. And when faith gets weaker, our country seems to get weaker. When faith gets stronger, as it is right now, we're having a very good period of time. After some rough years, good things happen for our country. It's amazing the way it seems to work that way. And under the Trump administration, we're defending our rights and restoring our identity as a nation under God. We are one nation under God, and we always will be.
Trump highlighted threats to religious liberty. He said students are punished for praying in public and taught what he called radical gender theory in public schools. Trump also mentioned pro-life activists who were jailed, and Christian schools that are targeted in shootings.
We're here this morning to discuss the grave threats to religious liberty in American schools. And you know what's going on. We all know what's going on. But I will tell you, a lot of progress has been made in the last 8 months. Tremendous progress, more than I thought we could make in so many ways. Not only that, the woke agenda is practically gone.
The president recapped actions his administration has taken regarding religious liberty, including creating the first-ever Department of Justice task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias and cutting funding for universities with anti-Semitic and anti-Christian bias. Trump also mentioned banning cross-gender procedures for children. Trump says the Department of Education will soon issue new guidance protecting the right to prayer in public schools. A long-standing protest tent outside the White House was removed yesterday. The peace vigil had stood in D.C. for more than 4 decades. President Trump ordered it taken down as part of the clearing of homeless encampments in the nation's capital.
We had a blue tent right on Lafayette, and they seemed to have a permit. And one of the fake news media was asking me the other day, what about the blue tent? What blue tent? Because all the tents got, somehow these people were very well connected with the communist cause. And I said, there's a tent up there? Really? Yeah. And he was a friendly reporter for a change. He said, it's terrible that the tent. I said, I didn't know that. I'm surprised. And I checked, and there was. And we got it down very quickly. It's down.
Officials say it had morphed into a shelter. The vigil was started in 1981 by activist William Thomas to promote nuclear disarmament and an end to global conflicts. It's believed to be the longest continuous anti-war protest in U.S. history. The small but persistent act of protest was brought to Trump's attention during an event at the White House on Friday. Real America's Voice correspondent Brian Glenn told Trump the tent had become more of an anti-American, sometimes anti-Trump operation over time. Glenn also said the structure could be a national security risk because people could hide weapons there. A volunteer who has manned the vigil for years told the Associated Press the location was not a homeless encampment. Officials in Charlotte, North Carolina have released video showing the moments before a Hungarian woman, or rather a Ukrainian woman, was fatally stabbed on a city train. The surveillance video from last month shows 23-year-old Irina Zarutska sitting in front of suspect Carlos Brown, who later pulls out a knife and attacks her from behind. Police say Zarutska was pronounced dead at the scene, while Brown was hospitalized before being arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Family members say Zarutska had recently fled Ukraine, escaping the war and hoping to start a new life in the United States. Records show Brown previously served prison time in North Carolina on robbery and larceny charges before his release. Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles called Zarutska's killing a senseless and tragic loss and said the city remains committed to safety. The case also drawing a strong response from President Trump today. Watch.
I just give my love and hope to the family of the young woman who was stabbed this morning or last night in Charlotte by a madman, a lunatic. Just got up and started. It's right on the tape. Not really watchable because it's so horrible, but just viciously stabbed. She's just sitting there. So they're evil people. We have to be able to handle that. If we don't handle that, we don't have a country.
A high-profile trial is set to kick off. Jury selection begins today in the case of a man charged with trying to assassinate President Trump. The incident happened while Trump was playing golf last year in South Florida. Jury selection is expected to take 3 days, with attorneys questioning 3 sets of 60 prospective jurors. Opening statements are scheduled to begin Thursday. Prosecutors will begin their case immediately after that. Suspect Ryan Ruth will represent himself. Prosecutors say Ruth methodically plotted to kill Trump for weeks before aiming a rifle through the shrubbery. A Secret Service agent spotted Ruth before Trump came into view. Officials said Ruth aimed his rifle at the agent who opened fire, causing Ruth to drop his weapon and flee without firing a shot. The suspect has pleaded not guilty to all charges. Actor Tom Hanks was scheduled to receive the Sylvanus Thayer Award at a ceremony later this month, but the alumni group at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point is canceling the event. The group's president says this will give the cadets more time to prepare for upcoming commitments. The award was named for Sylvanus Thayer and is given annually to Americans who exemplify duty, honor, country. In a Truth Social post, President Trump called the decision an important move. He said, quote, "We don't need woke recipients getting cherished American awards." It's unclear if Hanks will still be awarded the honor. So far, there's been no comment from Hanks or his representatives. A new low for Chinese exports to the U.S. An expert explains what this means for trade relations. Stay tuned for that.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is vaping? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. Yeah, you didn't even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutVaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges. Oh my goodness.
So Ariel, we made this yearbook for you. It has notes from all the people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
It's been about 6 months since the U.S. upended trade relations with sweeping reciprocal tariffs. That announcement sent a ripple effect around the globe. New data shows China's exports to the U.S. slowed in August to a 6-month low. Joining us now to discuss is Daniel Akaye, chief economist at Tressis, a wealth management and financial services company. He's also an international financial analyst and author of the book Freedom or Equality. So Daniel, let's get right into the numbers here. Data shows that China's export to the U.S. plunged 33% last month, and imports from the U.S. to China fell 16% from a year ago. Can you help us make sense of these numbers in terms of perhaps impact to businesses, consumers? Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Don. I think that a lot of things to take out from these figures. Number one is that the narrative that U.S. consumers would absorb tariffs has been completely debunked. The decline in exports shows that, number one, the suppliers all over the world are happy to sell to the United States, and that United States distributors are finding no problem to fill their orders with other products, and that Chinese companies are unable to pass the tariff to consumers. One of the things that is very interesting is that export growth is much lower than what market estimated, which also shows that Chinese exporters are not able to find other markets other than the United States. Yes, exports have grown, but they've grown significantly below what analysts expected. So the first one is obviously that there is absolutely no evidence that United States companies are accepting from Chinese exporters an increase in prices due to tariffs. Number two, that those Chinese exporters are not able either to maintain their margins and continue exporting as much as they did. And number three, that there has been no evidence whatsoever in the United States of a reduction in availability of products. So there is a very significant, coming from the trade data that we saw the other day, a very significant shift. A lot of products are coming from other countries and not from China. This is an interesting one. A lot of countries are actually adapting very, very well to the current environment.
How do you think this impacts China's economy? Because we've talked about in the past how China's economy perhaps is not the best. How is this going to add to that?
Well, a number of things are very, very challenging for the Chinese economy. Number one, as you know, the Chinese government is implementing drastic measures to try to reduce overcapacity and try to bring or at least curb the decline in prices in China. The deflationary risks in China are very significant. But think about this. If exporters are unable to continue to grow their volumes globally by eliminating the United States market, and at the same time, United States exports have declined so severely, it shows two things. Number one is that the richest and best market is not accepting the prices that they're selling at, and certainly that will continue to erode margins and continue to worsen the working capital problem of Chinese exporters. And number two, it is also going to show that they are going to find themselves in a very challenging environment to maintain jobs and to maintain production. Those three elements, lower prices, lower margins, and the risks to employment, are things that add to an already challenging situation for China coming from the real estate bubble burst.
So since the tariffs have passed, imposed rather, do you think we're entering a new chapter, if you will, between trade between the U.S. and China? And if we are, how would you describe this new chapter?
Well, I think I would call it adaptation. I think that there were too many narratives moving around markets about what would happen. What we are seeing is that companies globally are adapting through technology. Supply chains are stronger than what a lot of people expected, and certainly a lot more flexible. And Chinese companies that were used to sell to the United States all of their excess capacity and try with that to reduce their enormous working capital challenges are going to find a very significant problem. So the next step is quite interesting. either these companies start to reduce prices and start to adapt to an environment in which demand is not as, I would say, as inelastic as some people expected, or we're going to see a massive move from these exporters trying to dump their products in any other market. And this is interesting. The European Union, that has complained so much about the trade agreements between different nations and the United States, is now concerned that the European Union will be flooded with cheap Chinese products coming from this challenge of working capital from exporters.
Do you think the Chinese economy will ever go back to its peak, seeing how things are now?
It's very difficult. It's incredibly difficult. I mean, the Chinese economy reached this peak by opening the economy, implementing measures that would give economic freedom to citizens and improve the landscape for businesses. And unfortunately, the government has decided to gradually close the economy and impose more interventionism and more direct implications in the strategies of companies, including those of forcing companies to invest and to hire people that they and putting money in things that they were not planning to do. So the problem of interventionism is not going to work. Central planning is what doesn't work. What helped the Chinese economy reach a peak was precisely avoiding central planning in economic matters. By allowing economic freedom, allowing more open trade, allowing more open businesses, etc., that helped China reduce poverty, increase productivity, and improve growth. What has damaged the Chinese economy is central planning. Central planning is what created this enormous real estate bubble that is bursting now in front of the Chinese people's faces. And central planning is what created this enormous overcapacity that is mostly concentrated in state-owned companies. Unfortunately, the government, instead of looking at what drove growth and productivity and reduction of poverty, which was economic opening, is actually trying desperately to make socialism work by getting together with Russia, Brazil, and other countries that are certainly not going to give them prosperity, but stagnation. And that is the problem, is that unfortunately, China, instead of deciding to go down the way of prosperity, is going down the way of interventionism.
So essentially you're saying, and this is just the last thing, Daniel, you're saying that essentially central planning has led to the state of the current economy in China and the CCP's actions there. So if that's the case, then the CCP needs to relinquish more control and let the market, do its thing, right? If this is the case, then I see a dilemma, because the CCP does not want to give up more control. But on the other hand, it needs the economy in order for it to exist. So, I mean, seems like it's between a rock and a hard place.
It is between a rock and a hard place. You've said it very well. And unfortunately, there is a trend in China that you know very well, in which there is a group of intellectuals trying to convince the government that through technology and artificial intelligence, they're going to make communism work. Communism doesn't work because it ignores the basic elements of economic calculus. That is the reason why communism has never worked and is not going to work with or without artificial intelligence. So I think that is the problem, is this obsession of trying to bake the cake and eat it. The Chinese economy achieved the most spectacular levels of growth and reduction of poverty seen in recent history by opening the economy. Unfortunately, since the decision to maintain the power of Xi Jinping almost forever, every single policy measure has been to reduce the operating and economic and financial freedom of businesses, particularly in technology. And think about this. The race in the technology battle of China has started to worsen relative to the United States precisely when the government decided to intervene in the technology sector. Suddenly, patents all of the innovations, all of the great improvements that were being achieved started to slow down dramatically. And it's logical. Central planning never works. It doesn't work in the euro area, as we are seeing with Germany, with France, etc. It doesn't work. It didn't work in Japan. It doesn't work in the UK, and it's certainly not going to work in China. And they will unfortunately learn the hard way. Hopefully, somebody will come up and implement opening measures.
You know, I think, Daniel, you're spot on there, because I talked to a guest before, and they phrased it like, in a way that it's only a matter of time that the Chinese Communist Party will collapse. But thank you for the conversation today, Daniel. It was a pleasure to speak with you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much, Don.
Britain is looking to get tougher on illegal immigration. The UK may cut the number of visas granted to countries that do not accept the return of migrants with no right to remain. The proposal follows talks with allies, including the United States, on how to assert more control over borders. Britain today took part in a meeting of the intelligence sharing partnership collectively known as Five Eyes. New Interior Minister Shabana Mahmood said counterparts from the United States, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand agreed to the principles of the visa-cutting proposal in London.
In the end, this is about how you strike the balance between human rights on the one hand and securing our borders. I do think that that balance isn't in the right place at the moment. That's why we will come forward with changes to our domestic legislation and the guidance in terms of how we apply some of the convention rights legally here at home.
Britain says it needs to address the pull factors that are making it a destination of choice for those that are on the move around the world. It is also proposing a system of digital ID to help combat illegal working. The UK government is under great pressure from opposition parties over how to deal with a record number of illegal immigrant arrivals. It faces calls to leave the European Convention on Human Rights in order to take tougher action. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem also attended the Five Eyes meeting in London today. U.S. tax dollars are aiding the Chinese Communist Party's military industry. A new congressional investigation details how the CCP is exploiting taxpayers through joint collaboration between U.S. and Chinese research projects. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
Hundreds of Pentagon grants valued at more than $2.5 billion help to fund sensitive research in collaboration with Chinese entities. The entities are tied to China's military industry, some already blacklisted by the U.S. government. Republicans on the Select Committee on the CCP wrote, "There is no justification for U.S. taxpayer-funded research to be conducted with entities documented to have facilitated human rights abuses or support China's mass surveillance apparatus." The committee highlighting a concern that's lingered for years.
So what we found is that a lot of the research that is being done under this joint venture, if you will, is benefiting the military. And of course, we know that the Chinese Communist Party is becoming more aggressive at home and around the world and is using every means to infiltrate our institutions and really disrupt our way of life.
The new 80-page committee report gave several examples. A nuclear scientist at the Carnegie Institution of Washington also held appointments at Chinese institutions. He used tax dollars from the Pentagon-backed research related to developing nuclear weapons. The Chinese regime acknowledged his work as contributing to national development goals. Chairman Molinar proposed legislation to require more transparency from federal researchers and stop the Pentagon from funding projects with links to blacklisted Chinese entities. The committee also made more than a dozen recommendations to the War Department, formerly known as the Department of Defense. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
China's exports to the U.S. took a major hit last month, dropping 33% in August. Customs data today shows that U.S. exports to China also fell, down 16% compared to a year ago. The slowdown comes as the Trump administration cracks down on transshipments of goods to the U.S. That's when Chinese goods are routed through other countries like Singapore or Mexico to avoid U.S. tariffs. In response, Washington imposed a 40% duty back in July on any shipment it suspects of being a transshipment. China's growth is now at its weakest in 6 months. Beijing has been trying to boost trade with other Asian countries and the European Union to counter trade tensions with Washington. But the U.S. remains China's largest trading partner with nearly $283 billion in imports so far this year. Despite tensions ongoing, the two sides extended their tariff truce for another 90 days. Washington's tariffs on Beijing's goods stood at 55%, while Beijing keeps a 30% tariff on Washington's exports. But the peace is fragile. President Trump has threatened tariffs as high as 200% if China doesn't follow through on its pledge to increase rare earth shipments. For now, exports of rare earth materials to the U.S. are up nearly 23% as of August. Police in Kathmandu, Nepal, opened fire on protesters today, killing at least 17 and wounding dozens more. The demonstrators had gathered to protest against a government ban on social media. Police fired tear gas and water cannons, but were outnumbered and sought safety inside the parliament complex. Nepal has blocked most social media platforms, including Facebook, X, and YouTube. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli recently attended a military parade in Beijing. Commenting on the parade, President Trump has accused Chinese leader Xi Jinping of conspiring against the U.S. with the leaders of Russia and North Korea. An annual auto show starts its engines in Munich. The press gets a preview of the latest rides. We'll show you that after the break.
Watch what peanut butter does to our body.
Celery with peanut butter. Peanut butter is one of the worst foods that you could eat. It's loaded with lectins and really has no health benefits. They could have chosen almond butter from peeled almonds, and that would probably save this.
Cashews.
Cashews are not a nut. They're actually part of the poison ivy family.
No way.
Yeah, they cause burns in your gut and can actually cause skin problems.
What about walnuts?
Walnuts actually have the same fat that's in avocados. And human studies show that if you eat one avocado a day, you'll actually lose weight. So good fat makes you lose weight.
Oatmeal?
Oh, not oatmeal. Oats are basically pure sugar. Oatmeal is good for one thing, and that's for fattening horses for the winter. Remember, breakfast is break fast. Lots of human and animal studies have shown the longer you delay eating breakfast, the more ketones and weight loss you will achieve. If you're eventually going to have break fast, look for fat-based sources like an avocado or omega-3 egg.
Low-fat anything? Stay away. Companies market low-fat options as healthier, but just look at the label. These things are full of added sugars to make up for the flavor loss when they processed out all those natural fats. The truth is, fat isn't the enemy at all. Heard of the keto diet? It's all about eating the right fats to trick your body into max burning stored fat to slim down quickly. Of course, it's nearly impossible to stick to. And here's the rub. Even if you followed it perfectly, it still won't work the same way for everyone. Everyone's body processes fat differently. It all depends on your unique metabolic type. Now think about it. Why can some people eat nearly anything and not gain a pound, while others gain and lose weight like a yo-yo? Why do some people accumulate fat right around their bellies, while others store it around their butt and thighs? It's all tied to your metabolic type. That's also why some of us who think we're eating and living healthy often still struggle with stubborn extra pounds. Heck, I was one of them. For years, I was 70 pounds overweight, even though I felt like all I ever ate was salad. Now I know I was doing all the wrong things for my metabolic type. And once you know your metabolic type, you can get keto diet slimming power without the restrictive diet. All it takes is adding the right specific fat type to your diet to flip the switch on your body's fat burning power. If you want to find out your type, I put together a short quiz where you can find out. You don't need to put in your email or anything like that. Just answer a few simple questions and I'll share your results right away. So you'll possess the hidden key to your unique weight management strategy instantly. In fact, once you unlock your metabolic profile, I'll also show you exactly how to tweak one tiny thing about your diet to help you slim down in record time. Just take the quiz to get started.
Scan now to access your free quiz.
The 2025 IAA Mobility Car Show kicks off in Munich this week. The annual event brings automakers together to show off their latest rides. NTD Sandra Thomas has more on the highlights visitors can expect.
A new Audi is garnering attention at this Munich car show. The Concept C is a two-door electric sports car featuring a retractable hardtop and minimalist styling. Jake Groves, news editor at Car Magazine, says the model illustrates a new philosophy for the automaker.
It translates a new design direction into one car, and the whole point of that is to essentially hard reset Audi as a brand, not just from a design perspective, but from a business, really.
Volkswagen is also drawing attention at this year's IAA Mobility Munich with its ID Cross concept. The compact electric SUV is designed for both city driving and long-distance trips. Associate editor of Autocar James Atwood says the car maker is working to get back to basics.
When Volkswagen first launched their kind of ID range of electric cars, they tried to make everything different. They tried to make the styling different, they tried to make the names different. And I think what they've realized is that actually customers don't really want to buy futuristic electric cars that they don't know. They actually like the familiar stuff.
Sports car manufacturer Porsche is going hybrid. The new 911 Turbo S is the most powerful 911 ever made. Unveiled in Munich, a 701 horsepower hybrid engine takes the car from 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, boasting a top speed of 200 miles per hour. Every year, IAA Mobility has something to offer for every car enthusiast. Attendees get the opportunity to preview striking redesigns, new hybrids, electric vehicles, and more in Munich. The show officially opened to the press today. The public will have access starting tomorrow until September 14th. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
In the world of sports, Carlos Alcaraz has won his 6th major Grand Slam at U.S. Open. President Trump, a New York native, was in attendance yesterday. He told reporters he loved being there at the men's final.
First of all, the two players have unbelievable talent. I used to go all the time, but, you know, lately it's a little bit more difficult to go. Fans were really nice. I didn't know.
Trump's arrival triggered heightened security. The start of the match between Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz and Italian Yannick Sinner was delayed, with thousands of fans still outside the Arthur Ashe Stadium when it began. Alcaraz defeated Sinner in 4 sets to claim his 2nd Grand Slam title of the year. Sinner, who was aiming to become the first repeat champion at Flushing Meadows since Roger Federer conceded that Alcaraz was the better player. President Trump launches America Prays, a nationwide invitation to pray for our country. We have that and more after the break.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out. Even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hardworking neighbors are facing a hunger crisis, many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America, not just a name, but in action, working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community. And demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time